Hi, my name is William Lee, and welcome to my series on the Diaries of Grand Duke Dmitri Pavlovich of Russia. I'm doing this outdoors, so we'll see how it goes with the noises that one encounters outdoors in a suburb in North America. A little about myself. I have a PhD in Russian history from the School of Slavonic and East European Studies, which is University College, London. And my dissertation was on the relationship of all of the Russian Grand Dukes, for as long as there were Russian Grand Dukes, their relationship with the state. So it went from 1613 all the way up to 1917, and was especially focused on the era of great reforms under Alexander II. But the topic today is my favorite Grand Duke, Grand Duke Dmitri Pavlovich. So he was born in 1891 and died in 1942 at the age of 50. And he was first cousin of the last Tsar of Russia, Nicholas II. But because of the generational difference, he called Nicholas uncle, and Nicholas was a surrogate father to him. So I've been working for years now translating Dmitri's diaries and correspondence into English, and that's an ongoing project. And what I plan to do with this series is literally to discuss every diary entry going all the way back to 1906 when Dmitri was 14 years old, and all the way forward to 1940, which is when they stop, although there are large gaps. It's not every year from 1906 to 1940. So I think it will take a very long time if I continue to do this for all the diary entries, but why not? If you like it, and I'm definitely enjoying it, why not? So we'll start in 1906, January 1st, 1906, but before we get to that, a little bit about myself. I am the house historian for a historic hotel in the Swiss Alps in the town of Davos, which of course is famous for the World Economic Forum. And I am, for part of the year, the historian in residence. And in fact, I just got back. It hasn't even been 2 weeks yet. And I'll spend the rest of the summer in the United States. And the reason that's relevant is because Dmitri actually died at Schatz Alp. It was, before it was a hotel, it was a tuberculosis sanatorium. And he arrived there very, very ill in September 1939 and ended up dying there in March 1942, the 5th of March 1942. So I originally went to Schatz Alp doing research about Dmitri, and then I just sort of fell in love with it. It's the Magic Mountain. That's the famous novel by Thomas Mann that turns 100 years old this year. It was published in 1924, and it's still the Magic Mountain. And so I definitely urge you to go there. And if you find Dmitri to be as interesting as I found him to be, and you happen to be in Switzerland or have a trip planned to Switzerland, you can go to Schatz Alp and you can stay in his own room that he had while he was there. It's room 309, and you can also, if you go to www.schatzalp.ch, you can find a virtual tour of it. And there's a picture of him in there and a picture of Coco Chanel, but Chanel was never there. So I'm not going to fill in a lot of background information, to be honest. I just want literally to go through the diaries and naturally make some comments. But any of the people that are mentioned who are well-known people, royal people, you can find out about them online. And there are lots of photographs, and I only have all of my photographs of Dmitri as a child. The ones that aren't just photocopies are at Schatz Alp at the moment. So the photograph I thought I'd show today, the one and only photograph, is this one. And if any of you know what Dmitri looks like, maybe you can spot him in this photo, and you can spot his sister. They're both in the photo. The other three, I used to know who they were. I don't remember. But this is our boy right here, dressed as a little Russian peasant girl. And this is his sister, Grand Duchess Maria Pavlovna the Younger, dressed as a peasant boy. And she would have brought this photograph with her when she was forced to leave Russia after the revolution. So it must have been something that was very dear to her, because you wouldn't be bringing things that were just, yeah, you didn't care about. So let's get started with his actual diary. Sorry, you don't want an extreme close-up of my face, but I need to read it off of my laptop. So, January 1st, 1906. And that was he doesn't say what day of the week it was. That's all right, I think it was Sunday. So he writes, I was at a big procession. Tatiana felt ill during the liturgy, poor thing. She always feels ill, so I don't understand why they bring her. Uncle Kostya told me that when she gets sick, he lays her down so that her legs are higher than her head, and then everything goes away. At breakfast, I sat between Madame Zizi and Princess Golitsina. I spoke very nicely to her, and even spoke French. Afterwards, I went ice skating, and we drank tea and dined at Aunt Alex's. I don't feel well, but I think it's because I'm tired, and it will go away when I get some sleep. So, some background information. Dmitri was in Tsarskaya Selo. He was living in Tsarskaya Selo when he was writing this. So, he had lived, his father had divorced, his father was a widower who married a divorced commoner, and for that reason was banished from Russia by the Tsar in 1902. And then Dmitri and his sister were put in the custody of their aunt and uncle who lived in Moscow. Their uncle, Grand Duke Sergei Alexandrovich, was killed by a terrorist bomb in 1905, February 4th, I believe, 1905. Their aunt subsequently became an abbess, the founder of her own monastic order. And Dmitri and his sister were kind of going between relatives. So at this time, they were living in Tsarskaya Selo, which was where the Tsar, Nicholas II, and his wife and family had their main residence. But Dmitri and Maria were not living in the palace with the Tsar and the Tsaritsa. They had their own separate establishment and household. So the people that he's mentioning here, Tatiana is not Grand Duchess Tatiana, one of the four daughters of the Emperor and Empress. Tatiana was actually Dmitri's cousin, Tatiana Konstantinovna, and she was 15 years old, and Dmitri's sister was also 15 years old. Soon, both of them soon to be 16. And Uncle Kostya, Tatiana's father, was Dmitri's great uncle. He was the brother of Dmitri's grandmother, who was the queen of the Hellenes, the queen of Greece. And so Uncle Kostya and Tatiana and the other members of the family lived in Pavlovsk, which was not that far away. So you'll hear it mentioned frequently in the diaries. And what do we have next? So what was wrong with poor Tatiana, who was always getting sick and who was helped by her father lying her down and making sure that her legs were elevated? I have no idea. Maybe she had fainting fits or something. If any of you are experts on any of the people mentioned in this and you would like to leave a comment or correct anything I say, please, by all means, do so. Zizi, Madame Zizi, was a woman by the name of Elizaveta Alexeyevna Narishkina. and she will pop up elsewhere in Dmitri's diaries and letters. I'm thinking of one reference that was quite funny, specifically in 1908, but we've got a ways to go until we get there. And Princess Golitsina. Oh boy, there were, and to this day are, so many Golitsins in the world, spread out all over the place. Australia, Europe, the US, Canada. And so I just couldn't face the task of going online and trying to find out which Princess Golitsina this was. I'm sure I have it in my notes somewhere, but to just do it online would have been like finding a needle in a haystack. And maybe not, because she was probably at court and would have been mentioned. So ice skating, this is something that will come up in an interesting way in one of Dmitri's diary entries after the revolution. So hold that thought. And he and Maria had tea and dinner with Aunt Alex, the Empress Alexandra Fyodorovna, that night. And Dmitri had an interesting relationship with her, which you will see start to unfold in these diary entries. So the next diary entry, very short, only 3 sentences. 2nd of January, I'm sitting at home. I have a headache and a slight fever. It's rather boring. Maybe tomorrow it will pass. I think something that you might find interesting, something that I find interesting as I'm reading through those, is to ask myself, in what instances Dmitri is a very typical 14-year-old boy, and in what instances he's not, and in what ways he's not. And we'll talk about that later. The poor chap had lots of headaches at that age. I don't know what that was all about. So the 3rd of January, it hasn't gone away, referring to the headache. Today there was a dinner for the Jaegers regiment. Naturally, I didn't go. It's a shame. Aunt Alex says that I'll no longer be going to dinners, but if I were healthy, there would at least have been a small chance that it would have been allowed. I played bezique with Maria Nikolaevna in the evening. It's a very good game when you have a headache. Maria Nikolaevna won an awful lot, around 12,000. My head really hurts. It's even painful to write. And Dmitri wrote faithfully every single day for certain years of his life, even when there was nobody there to compel him to do so, and even when he wasn't planning on reading these diaries entries to anyone. It was just something that he did that I think is untypical of a boy that age, but he was doing it, so good for him. So the Jaegers regiment, so they had these grand regimental dinners for various guards regiments in Tsarskaya Selo that the Tsar would attend, and members of the court. And of course, this was very exciting to a boy of Dmitri's age, very colorful, very exciting, great fun. But starting at this time, he was no longer allowed to go. Apparently, he had been going to some, but no longer. His sister, who was 18 months older than him, could go. He could not go. And the one who said you can't go was Aunt Alex, the Empress Alexandra. She was the one who put a stop to it. And as we continue reading these diaries, we'll start to understand maybe why she did that. But for the moment, he was left at home with Maria Nikolaevna, who was the wife of his preceptor, not a word that one hears very often these days in English. So he wasn't just a tutor, he was the adult who ran Dmitri's household and who was with Dmitri every day and was saying, now it's time for you to go to bed, now it's time for you to go take a bath, supervising his homework, doing everything that a parent usually would do. That was Georgy Mikhailovich Laming, and his wife was Maria Nikolaevna, and I'm not sure where Georgy was that evening. He may have gone to the dinner, but Dmitri was left at home with his wife, and they played bezique, which is a card game. And now you know that bezique is a good game to play if you happen to have a headache, even if it's so bad that it's too painful to write. So the last diary entry that I'll do for today, because I want to keep these relatively short, is 4th January. Today I'm much better, and actually I'm fine. The Jaegers had their parade in the morning. Maria went, but I stayed home. Poor me. This kid had a great sense of humor, I can tell you, but he was sarcastic as heck. One thing that I forgot to mention is that in the very first diary, he talks about a big procession, and that would have been a procession of the royal family, those who were there, those who were going to church, to the liturgy that day. They would have gone in this grand hierarchical procession. And I'm not sure if he walked in that procession, because in Russian he uses the verb был. My pronunciation is horrible, which just means was. I was at the big procession. Sorry, there's like mosquitoes around here. This is why I'm scratching all the time. Very inelegant of me. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll come back. We will do some more diary entries for January. We'll get to know this boy. We'll get to like this boy, I hope, and appreciate his sense of humor. And yeah, if you want to follow up with any of my work at Schatzalp, just go to the website, www.schatzalp.ch, and you'll find my history blog there, and you'll find a link to my Sanatorium Schatzalp Facebook group, and you'll find a lot about Dmitri, including his diary entries for the time that he spent at the sanatorium. So, goodbye until next time.